So take number 15.
Yeah. Oh, give the man a chance.
I think it's going excellent because this is exactly reflecting our
this is
four
exactly-
seasons.
Ladies and gentlemen, take number 42. I am still excited to be here with a couple of my favorite people on the planet. Not only are the hosts here, but also a guy who is basically the reason that Smack started at the time when he said the famous sentence, Fritz, the only thing you're really good at is talking, so you might as well do something with it. So Arne is here as well, behind the scenes, our guy behind the scenes. And we are on air to give a little recap of what happened in the last 50 to 60 episodes. Philip is here. Flo, the man, the prettiest smile in hospitality, is here. Pat is around. And I am just thrilled and just going to throw the ball right into the middle to have you guys jump right in and start with a very easy one. I know, Phil, that you were a guest in season 1 back in the time before we got you on board. Favorite all-time favorite Smack moment thus far?
I can start it because I will never forget the moment when I was in that shady place that you call your office, which is really amazing. Opposite of that bar. Where
the Diva Bar.
The Diva Bar, where I was really scared to park the car, but I really think it was worth it. When I came to the office, it was warm, and it was Fritz, Flo, and Arne on one side and me on the other side, and everything was quite professional. The microphones were hooked to the table with a little screwdriver thingy, and we did this podcast episode, and we had a lot of fun because you guys were prepared, which I really admire all of you to be always prepared. I'm never, and I had no clue what I'm running into. Your questions were off the hook. You really got me at numerous times. Even now when I look or listen to it, I know exactly the moments where I really kind of lost it and was really out of words. But there was this very funny moment where the microphone crashed.
Yeah, dropped onto the table.
The microphone that was between Fritz, Flo, crashed. And, Arne was super, let's put it positive, engaged.
Yeah.
And he had to correct or put it back up and hook it back to the table. But I was talking and I see all these three working hard to get this microphone fixed. And the question was a simple question. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. My question, it was answered probably 3 minutes ago, but I saw them still working, so I had to extend the answer without having any content, which I learned quite good. That's a very, very good moment. So I kept on talking, and at one moment Arne raised his finger, said good, and then we went on. But that was super funny because I asked my mother if she has realized it, and she said no, it was not clear when it happened. So I thought it's quite a good start, and that was really my moment because all of you were very nervous all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that was quite cool.
And then a couple weeks later, we met one of the most talented ladies in hospitality and got you on board, Pat.
In my episode, you mean? When I was a guest?
And then afterwards, we discussed and said we really liked your vibe and the way you spoke. So we got you on board. All-time favorite hospitality, but also your episode? Or is there something else? Like
favorite Smack moment?
Yeah.
My episode, I think something similar happened with the microphones because we also had...
They do it on purpose.
Yeah,
they do it on purpose.
At the beginning, when we traveled to every place.
Yeah, exactly. Because we did it at EHL, in the school, in like one of the meeting rooms. And then it was also somehow screwed to the table, or I don't know what. And it also fell, I think, before we started the recording, so it wasn't that bad.
Fit. It didn't fit.
It didn't fit, yeah, exactly. And then we had to somehow share a microphone.
Improvise.
Yeah, me and Joanne had to share a microphone, and we were just like, going back and forth.
Yeah.
But the episode was not my favorite moment. I think my favorite moment was probably when I realized that we can actually, decide who gets to be on our respective episodes. And then I got to talk to Michelle and talk to just other people that I really admire. And I think that was really, really nice to just see, okay, we can actually influence who we want to talk to, what kind of messages we want to put out there. So
biggest fangirl moment you had?
With Hilda.
Yeah?
Yeah, from JLL. Yeah, because I still cannot understand that we got her. Like, this woman is so busy, and she just responded to our I don't know if it was an email or I don't know what
Yeah,
it
I
was.
think it was an
She
email,
just yeah, sure, I'm on board. And I saw her at the IHIF this year, and I just jumped her because I had like a fangirl moment. I was like, "Hello, you probably don't remember me." And she was like, and I was like, "We did a podcast together, Smack. You got a calendar?" I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Oh my god, I have your calendar actually in my office." And I don't know if this is true. This is probably not true, but she was just so like genuine, and she like remembered us, and
Yeah.
that was really really nice. Yeah.
I remember the time, Flo, when you and I had the very first discussion about Smack. Do you remember where that was?
Yeah, I remember we had drinks at Soho House
Yeah.
in Berlin.
Of course, Soho. Okay. Of course, EHL marble tables where the microphones don't fit in. Of course, Soho House. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that was the first
I think it was
discussion.
like a Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
Like still in. Yeah, you were saying like, "Hey, I have an idea." Or like, no, I think you didn't even come up with the idea at the beginning. You
No.
you had it in the back of your head.
Yeah.
But it was like first we had a chat for like half an hour. At that time, it was like
Yeah.
still also with Hotel Hero
Yeah.
and then somehow we're like,
Let's
let's
try it.
just try it out.
You
Right?
like talking, I like talking. Let's talk together.
Yeah, for sure. And like the first episode was really easy, right? It was just the two of us
Yeah,
telling our stories and entertaining ourselves. And then over the years we had to actually learn to ask better questions,
Yeah.
listen more. And Fritz is still on the verge of it. Right?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out.
With the latest stats, we can see he's still the one who
figuring it
tells
out.
more his story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, Arne was right. He said that at least he's a good talker.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember this as if it was yesterday when we sat at the. I know exactly the place as well in Soho House where we sat when we first sat.
It's now called the Fritz and Flo
No,
Corner.
it's not at all. Not even close. Tell me your
We're
favorite.
like the least popular podcast
Yeah.
at Soho House.
Yeah. Tell me your a memory that you have a particular. Is there? I'm sure there's many because you've been there
Good,
from day one.
bad. You
Good,
can choose.
bad, hideous.
I mean, there's loads of memories, right? Like especially in first season when we actually we traveled to every single episode,
Yeah,
the
that
two of
was
us.
wild. Yeah.
And meeting all of the
Mm.
guests. For example, when we're talking about failures here, I think our first episode with Velko
Yeah.
at the Kempinski headquarter was the biggest fail because we recorded a full episode and at the end of the day we realized we couldn't use it.
Yeah.
So
Why?
whole trip to Geneva.
But why?
Why couldn't you use it?
Because there was like a background noise, like a
In the meeting room that we didn't figure out.
that we
Yeah.
only figured out afterwards. No, but I think also for me the biggest highlight is just all of these conversations which we had, and also taking it back from our initial conversation when we just said like, hey, let's try out one episode or
Mm.
invite like the first 3, 4, 5 guests, and Phil was one of them. And everybody was just jumping on it, and it was at a time where you didn't have so many podcasts as maybe you
I have to say,
today.
it's the perfect time because it was before the
Mhm.
wave came.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's crazy. We started this. I remember we started the first episode, like the episode where it was just Flo and me. We started that. We did it. It aired the first week of September 2019.
Yeah.
Which was a while back. Obviously, the world is a completely different
Yeah.
place now with
Yeah.
COVID. Can you imagine COVID and everything else that happened?
Hey, and you recorded mine before I started the TSH
Yes.
because we did a lot of talking about Accor and why to
Yes.
move.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
were still
remember.
in a suit, no?
Yeah. I remember you guys following me at the Dehoga
Yes.
New Year's Empfang because you wanted to meet some people for the podcast.
And you introduced us to
Tina
remember?
Brack.
Tina.
Of
Absolutely.
course, you asked me
Yeah.
about which female person I would say make a podcast with, and you did it with Tina,
Yeah.
who's now back in
Berlin.
Berlin. She's
Yeah.
at the West End.
At the West End,
Super
yeah.
happy. I pass by every day.
Yeah.
Well, it also shows how long we're already on air, right? At that time, Ellington was still
A
really
thing.
a place to be,
Yeah.
and with the jazz cafe and everything.
Yeah. And we recorded that episode in the jazz area, in the
jazz area,
in the
yeah.
jazz area
Or
at the
like
bottom, or in the restaurant
yeah,
at
in the
least.
restaurant.
Yeah. There's some crazy memories. We just had this conversation before we started the recording. If you had to guess, Patsy,
Mm-hmm.
how many episodes out of, let's say, somewhere, I don't know the exact number, I think we've done somewhere between 50 and 60. If you had to guess how many of these episodes that were not yours, because naturally you were there for those, so it's not very complicated to recap on that one. How many of you listened to? Honest answer.
I think 8.
Okay. Could you name them? Is there any
I mean, yeah, I can try. Like Bazin, Hoffman, the one, the lady from the TSH, I can't remember her name.
Mika?
Mika Feldhus?
Yeah. Then the one with Dr. Rosenkrantz.
Yeah.
Then the one, like the original OG.
The OG
one
episode,
from
yeah.
you guys. Phillips, obviously, and then that's probably more or less it that I can remember right now.
Yeah.
It's just
I have to confess,
zero.
No, I have to say, I usually I stroll through.
We're just gonna beep these.
Zeros we beep.
No. I have not listened to your initial one because you sent it to me as a preparation, and as you all know, I said I don't want to be prepared.
It was like preparation.
Nope.
And I listened to yours. I have to say, I listened when
the YHS one.
When you exactly.
Really, but why? That's so.
I mean, when we realized that we're gonna be hosts here, it might make sense to know how you are.
I thought you did that before, which would not make any sense.
No, because I'm not from Lausanne. You know, I worked my way up from the streets. I'm not like
from rags to riches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, but I listened to that one, and I quite
he
often
told me he was I don't know, guys.
Not sure about that one.
I quite listened to some of the podcasts I did, funny wise, after I recorded them.
Same,
because I sometimes had to memorize. I listened to the Hoffman episode because that was really a good one. I listened to the Caroline von Kretschmann episode, and I did listen to Bazin. Obviously, I mean Bazin. Probably I listened even twice. And funny, I listened to the episode of that wonderful gentleman from Switzerland that I did the podcast with. That was the first one I had to do in English, I guess.
The one from Rosa.
Yeah.
Pascal
Yenny.
Yeah.
Because that was way more funny than I thought in the beginning. We talked about these bear things.
Yes.
And that really stuck me. So I listened to that one. And from your guys, you did one. You were talking about this episode, I don't know how many times. It must be your favorite ones. And I think I listened to that one. I'm not sure whether it was...
I know exactly which one.
Which one was that?
I know exactly which one. It was the former CEO of Steigenberger.
Yeah. Wow, how many weeks we have talked about that, and you had to travel there.
But that was a very good episode.
That
was a very good
episode.
I traveled the whole way to Steigenberg.
Which is 2 kilometers from home.
That was a long trip. A long trip from southern France.
Flo, tell me about you, because you've obviously, like I said, you've seen the progression from the very first one when the microphones were glued to the table to a little bit more professional setup now. Has it changed how you do the episodes? Because you've been a host now for what, 3 years, 4 years now?
Forever. It
Forever.
feels like forever.
Yeah. Has it changed how you go into these episodes?
Yeah, definitely. I think at the beginning, also the first year was a lot our network.
Yeah.
So we really knew the people, right? So some really great names, and some, you knew, so maybe I didn't know them so well.
Yeah, or the other way around.
Or the other way around.
Yeah.
But you could already kind of bring great stories, and you knew where to highlight. And of course, when you have, guests which you find them that they have an interesting profile, or you got to recommend it that you should speak to them or get them on a podcast, maybe you need a little bit more preparation of the topic of like, what do you want to talk about today? It doesn't necessarily mean that you prepare everything to detail, but it's more like, okay, who is my guest today? Who am I facing, and what could be their story? So I think it has changed in that way, but it's also being more comfortable, just being able to have a relaxed conversation with industry leaders, and knowing that, they're enjoying their time, and having, it's there to have like 45 minutes, 1 hour of like fun and deep diving on their life, on their topics, on their areas. So
it's funny you say that, because still to this day, when we speak to the people who might potentially come onto the show as guests, it's funny how the element of fun is an absolute game changer for the conversations. We just and this is a true story, I had a call with Mari last week with somebody who might join us for an episode in season 5. And they specifically, a massive global a company that you all will have heard of from the Middle East. Teaser, it's worth listening in season 5. No, but the bottom line is
global company,
yeah. But the bottom line is
they were all there already.
The reason they actually picked up the conversation with us, and they specifically said this in the conversation, in the call, was they said because it's a different format, it's fun, there is no scripted questions, it's not businessy to the last moment, it's not numbers, it's a conversation of the story of that person and then respectively their story with the company.
And I think think it's not just fun. I think it's also hard
Agreed.
because it's
yeah,
it's a
authentic.
lot about authentic
Exactly.
stories which matter to the people. So sometimes you'll be like super. It's a lot of laughter, but sometimes also gonna be super personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
emotional.
that's what
Yeah.
what makes it special.
And I think if you look at the audience or the people listening as well, when you talk to people, sometimes you meet them and you say, "Hey, I listened to this in this podcast." I think it's really good to see very often the career way and the paths and probably the
Yeah.
ditches or the things that did not work out quite in that sense that you wanted to are helpful for people in the industry. If I look back and when I started, I always read newspapers because there was no audio podcast. But reading newspapers, reading the story of people, career stories, was always something that helped me sharpening the eye of the career that might be laying ahead. And if you then think about Ronisha of Hyatt, who probably shared how difficult it may be to combine everything, traveling a lot, working hard, being a role model, an idol at all time, and then having a private life that gives you all the things together. I think a lot of people might stand at a similar junction points or
Crossroads.
decision
Crossroads,
points, and
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's quite good as well what we do.
And I think that's the beauty, right? Because that was actually our initial mission in a sense, or idea behind Smack when we started at the beginning. It was like, hey, we are still quite young, and
That's
we
why
had
we got Philip as well for
the
the young.
opportunity
Yeah.
out of university, and then in a couple of years speaking to so many industry leaders
Yeah, yeah.
and really fascinating people, and being able to share this story to the masses in a sense, or to people who are just at the beginning of their career or maybe somewhere more specialized, and it's bringing these stories to life. And I
Yeah.
think this is something which I think is actually the biggest success, is that
Yeah, I
actually
agree.
we're now in season 5 and we've not become like super corporate or something like that, because you can earn more
Heaps
ads
amount of
on
money.
on
Yeah.
that or something. But it's actually we stayed true to the vision
Ourselves, yeah.
and what Smack is supposed to be.
And we all have evolved as well in our personal ways.
Agreed.
Huh?
Yeah,
I moved from Accor when we started to TSH. You sold out and bought half of South France, Flo. You went on to
Our new
I
development-
changed jobs
development-
3 times.
our new
Yay.
development
development
queen,
queen,
Yeah.
and you changed the name of the company. I mean, that's as well something that is
Yeah.
probably not so easy
Easy to do.
especially coming to, I don't know, a name that is very explainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it
49, 69, 49.
depends on the day. No, I agree. I agree that I think there's some development there for sure. And I think it's also the fact that people have stayed, with us over time, because I think, we can all agree that not every episode is going to be interesting. And we've talked about this multiple times. Not every episode is interesting for every guest.
True.
Sorry, for every user, right? So the fact that we have people who have stayed with us since the very, 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 very first episode is quite mind-blowing sometimes, in my opinion, because there's been, I'm sure, 15, 20 episodes in between that they had absolutely zero interest in listening.
And as well, what we shouldn't forget, I mean, there is work behind it, so I have to give this credit as well to you, the team.
And it's more than the four of us.
Exactly, that's what
Yeah.
I mean. So, and as well, between us, sometimes we don't agree. I mean, sitting now here having fun is one aspect of it, but I remember numerous calls where we might have different opinions on
Yeah,
at what time a call should start.
Yeah.
Who should be present at what time? What should be the context? Even now starting this, who starts, what we do, everything is so fluid in what we do, and I think this is something that really is felt by the audience. And I got a couple of people listening literally to every podcast.
Yeah, same.
That's quite
Same.
Yeah. And we're 4 very different people as well.
that
And
as
I think
well.
that helped.
That helps.
We've actually talked about this in the office, and I think the fact that we are 4 very different people in terms of values to some extent, in terms of what we do professionally. Yes, there's a connection with hospitality.
True.
But I think the fact that we're 4 different characters, if you so want, has really helped.
That's
style
one
of the
thing
podcast.
that really, and it's not hospitality because it's a simple one, but we all share this high amount of passion for this industry.
Agreed.
I mean, not the hospitality is easy. I mean, everybody
We
has
all
worked
there.
somewhere.
Yeah.
But the amount of passion, sometimes we sit and talk about hotels. How stupid could we be? I mean, talking about a hotel, or we share news of the industry, and it sounds sometimes like we're super nerdy and geeky in this industry.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the
sit
things.
here on a Sunday evening, and it's like it's
It's fun.
It's clear, right?
It's
Like,
fun.
we're
It's
having
fun,
fun.
yeah.
It's the industry we all love. We're part of, and we want to change. And I don't think that we always do it in the perfect way, but we do it in the best way we can.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really excited. Also looking forward now to the next season. and just trying to improve year by year on like, okay, what are new formats we may be introducing, or
Yeah.
how can we engage different kind of parts of the industry as well,
Yeah.
and not just
Audiences.
stay in kind of the same area where we feel familiar and comfortable, but always trying to get out of our comfort zone.
Yeah. And there is new formats on the horizon, so theme alert there. Stay tuned. There is something coming. I do have a very particular question I want to ask all three of you. Favorite episode of Smack, whether it's your own, the episode of somebody else, and be selfish. If it's your own, that's totally cool. But tell me your favorite episode.
I
Patsy.
don't want to start.
You don't wanna
I'll
start?
start. No
No.
worries.
Okay, go.
Very good.
I think I have to put it in a different perspective or a different view. The thing that was most sustainable about the podcast was the question where you got me when you asked me, how do you become the coolest GM of Berlin?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys, how you came up with this, but I tell you, this is now literally 5 years, 4 or 5 years ago. This is still quoted. When I'm interviewed or when I do press coverage or whatever,
You guys made him.
Yeah.
no, that's you make it sound like it's a fun thing. It's not mine. So people come up to me and said,
That's
"You're the
serious.
coolest GM," and I said, "No, I don't feel like I'm the coolest GM, but I always have to laugh because I know where it comes from."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous because, well, if you know me, I would probably never say something like this. I would behave like this, but I would never say it. That's not
Yeah,
how I
I know
see
what you mean.
myself. And
I
it's
know
so
what you mean, yeah.
funny because it stayed so intense, and it was as well one of my first podcasts. So I say this one where you had me in the office was for me probably the favorite one.
Yeah.
And from those that I hosted, I was able to host, I really enjoyed speaking to Christoph Hoffmann, because I think for the parts of the industry that I love the most, and this is running a hotel that has a classy and a fun style element. He is something like one part of a Godfather. I'm not down with everything they do, but it's not as 25. But him as a person, he has changed it. And when he told this story that he comes from a little wine shop in Reutlingen where I did my Abitur, I mean, this is so funny. This is so ridiculous. So for me, that was probably one of the best ones.
Fun fact on the Christoph Hoffmann episode, and I've been fortunate to meet him twice. And he's a great guy, and he's clearly created something with the other gentleman who was involved in 25 Hours that will last for the ages. But fun fact of the Christoph Hoffmann episode, we had to try 3 times to record it because the first 2 times, Christoph, and God bless him, because he really is a nice guy and he meant no harm at all. He was on vacation twice. He simply forgot about it.
The first thing he forgot. Then he forgot that he needs a laptop to do it. He thought he can do it via phone. And they said, no, we cannot do it tomorrow because I have to travel to Oman.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, no worries. I'll sit again here. And I blocked the agenda 4 times for that.
So he was and he felt bad afterwards, and he sent us a text afterwards and said, "Hey, thanks again for having me, and I'm sorry it didn't work out the first 2 times. I was just traveling and so on and so forth." And it's just it was a clear example, and I agree with you. I love the episode. It's a clear example of a guy who's just who's been around the world and back, and is just very laid back
And still going
and
around the world.
and still going around the world and
still
back.
Very
founding
busy.
hospitality
And still doing
concepts,
new things,
now
yes.
new things. I mean, come on. Let's be honest, he's 45. So
Yeah.
he has worked a long road already.
Yeah.
45.
45, yeah.
But
I was just gonna say what?
Yeah, no, he's a tad older. Flo, what about yours? All-time favorite one? Yours or somebody else's?
There's no all-time favorite one for me, because
They're all so great.
no, there's been for me the opportunity of getting some people who influenced me
Yeah.
during my career on the show. If it's like, Markus Bernhard, who was CEO of Steigenberger or Deutsche Hospitality at the time, who was the person who actually told me to do hotels and hospitality.
Oh, he was the guy that got you started?
He was GM in Brussels at the time.
isn't he not your godfather? I thought he was
No,
at your
no, no.
baptization.
He's not my godfather.
He's the
Uh,
godfather.
He's
His-
the
The godfather.
His daughter went to kindergarten with my sister. So that's how
There's a
we,
family
met.
connection.
Like there's a family connection,
okay.
and he was a GM
In Brussels.
In Brussels, and
Okay, I
at
didn't
the
know that.
time, and with Residor and
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of that, and he was like saying, hey, I was always a bit kind of like, what's my path? And he was like, hey,
Try
hospitality
hospitality,
is
yeah.
exactly what you're strong in. So he's
And
kind
he
of
was
he
right.
influenced me in that sense. Convinced my father at the time that Lausanne is actually worth
A good investment. yeah.
worth the path. So a little bit of Swiss. No, so that was heartfelt for me too, and I liked the show, but also people like Boris Radke, who was at Omni at the time, nowadays at Empal, who I met at the startup event at the time, and really influenced me in terms of like, how to
Mindset.
become a great
Yeah.
leader and pushing the boundaries. So for me, and I could go on that. So I think it's more about a lot of really inspirational people in my
Yeah.
career, where I was happy to have them on the show and share a personal moment with them.
Yeah, that's
What about you,
That's
Fritz?
also-
Before you
no.
take
Now
it
I
on?
No,
wanna
now
say because
Patsy.
it really
Now Patsy
fits-
knows.
It fits to what Flo said.
What
my-
Flo says.
No, because my favorite episode is Michelle Walters because it was
Yeah.
my first one. I was very, very nervous, and
You never forget the first ones, right?
yes, you never do. And she was my boss for only a month, but
Yeah.
she's someone I really, really admire, and it was so nice for her to, also she didn't know smack, she didn't know what we were doing. I'm sorry, she did this out of the pureness of her heart, and we had so much fun. And for me, that's the nice thing about the podcast, right? Like you can. Obviously, you get to speak to, like, for example, like you get to speak to really famous people that you admire from afar, but you also get to like bring people on board that you admire in day to day, more or less. And
Shape careers like from Phil, who's now the
Yeah, who's now the coolest GM in the city.
Exactly.
How I am the coolest
you
GM.
have
Back
so
then it
much
was-
power. You have
What
so
the
much
fuck?
power.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I would probably say my first episode with Michelle.
I
now
agree.
you can answer.
No, I mean my answer is similar to what you guys have said. Funnily enough, it's not an episode that probably most would anticipate, because it's an episode with a lady who was the very first person after I had started studying in Lausanne, and gosh was I clueless when I first started in Lausanne. She was the very first lady who I met at a career fair at the time, and I'm still opposed to the concept of career fairs for different reasons. But
I
that's
love it.
But that's a different story. And her name was Ingrid Eras Magdalena, and she's now gone into retirement, and I wish her the happiest of retirements humanly possible. And at the time, she was with Starwood. She was the VP at Starwood for HR and talent and culture and so on and so forth. And I met her at the tender age of probably 18 on the first careers fair, and kept in touch with her ever since, and still am in touch with her, not as frequently as I would like to be, but still am in touch with her. And she then went on to do the HR role at Belmont and so on and so forth. And despite the fact that I've obviously, and speaking to Sébastien Bazin was obviously, a wild experience, for different reasons.
For many reasons.
But Ingrid to this day is still my favorite moment, because there was so many emotions involved there, because she was the first person I ever talked to about career and all of that kind of stuff.
Did she recruit you in the end?
She tried. It's a funny story, because before I started the agency and Robin and I wrote the business plan for what is today Studio 49. She tried to get me in, and some of you might remember this. You remember the previous fast track GM program of Starwood was Vita Futura. Does that ring a bell with it? Yeah. And she tried to get me to do that at the time, and then obviously we all know that a couple months later Starwood no longer existed. Exists still, no, and it's the coolest brands in Marriott are still the Starwood brands, so there is that. But no, I agree. So I largely agree with what you all said, that the episodes, I think the people and the relations in the episodes made more sense than or not sense, but built a stronger relation than necessarily
let me to probably go a bit on the finalize it a bit. Probably
we need to
cut this short.
We need to talk about season 5 before we go.
No, but I need to watch the time, because I was appointed timekeeper.
Oh,
because
shit.
he said that we should not extend to a certain need, which we're very good at. We're very good at extending.
We suck at keeping time. That's true.
Before
don't.
I
mean, I'm sorry. Talk
1.5
to
hours.
I
to the
have
mirror.
one question. When you talked about season 5 to
Yeah.
all of you, probably I can use it as a wrap up, so I can tease as well. But I'll ask it now, because it's a future driven question. So if you would have one wish, who you would have as
that's a good one.
as a potential
That's a good one.
guest in an upcoming season, and
Ooh, that's a
I
good
want
one.
you to think as if Fritz has no veto
the sky's
rights.
the limit.
No
Okay.
veto right on Fritz, because he has these fucking veto rights,
Yeah.
which sometimes
Yeah.
I don't
suck
use them as often anymore.
literally every season.
No,
but,
that's not true. That's not true.
no, but if you
It's
have
a good
one wish,
question.
who would you take?
It's a good
Who
question,
would
yeah.
you have in your podcast?
I know. I'll start, because I know mine, and you know this, and I've said this forever. When I started the podcast, and when I first spoke to Arne and Flo, and I know that Arne and Flo will probably remember this story. The person that I had envisioned to be on the show at some point, and again, God bless him, he is now in retirement and well out of the industry, was Bill Marriott Jr. because I thought he was, the way he kept himself, and I think he's over 90 years of age today, but the way he kept himself already when we started Smack, when he was in his mid-80s, I thought he was just an inspirational guy. And I was fortunate enough to see him live at an event once on stage. That guy was just a breath of fresh air. The way he talked about people in the industry, and we all talk about it, but the way he did it was just so different. So I know it's not likely to happen anymore because he's in retirement and well past 90 years of age. But if there's a chance, if there would be a chance, I would do Bill Marriott and say thank you to him, because he was an inspiration to me when we started thinking about the guests.
I have mine. I would love to have had the chance to do one with Johnny van Dalen, who passed away. Was great GM, probably one of the way I don't want to say a wide elderly man should run a hotel. It's not always good, but that's what I really like. But my second best is Reto Witwer.
Mm-hmm.
He's still around. He might not need to work that much anymore.
I would assume so.
But he's still around, and I was lucky enough to meet him while my 1 year at Kempinski in Africa. There's a funny story, because then I came back to Berlin and I had a brunch date with the mother of my kid at the Kempinski, at the Adlon. And I saw Reto with investors' friends or whatever passing by. But I mean, it sounds fun, but I was so shy to stand up and say hi, even though I met him in person. So I didn't do it. So I went to the reception and wrote a little note. And I said, Reto, you might not remember me because you meet so many people, but we met in Africa in Chad back then. And I just wanted to say hi. I was there. I saw you. And just want to send out my regards. I'm back in Berlin, so let me know when I could do something for you, something like that. So I sent that up to his suite. And I went on. And on Monday morning at 8:30, I had an email. I still have it somewhere. And it said, Philip, comma. Whenever you see me anywhere in the world, come and say hi. I will always remember you. I know who you are.
Oh,
what a guy!
And even if it's a lie, even if I don't care whether it's a lie, it's the right way to respond. Yeah. So Reto is the one I would do when I have, and probably more likely I want to do one with Daniela Schade, which is still probably in the doable range. Yeah. So Daniela, if you listen, be prepared. I'm gonna get you.
You're getting a phone call. Flo, Pat, what about you two?
I don't have a specific person, but I don't know, this is just top of my mind now, but I would like to do something with someone who is managing kind of the tourism aspect of a city or an
super
area.
Cool. Yeah.
For example, Amsterdam would be super interesting with, the campaign of not having stag do's from the UK anymore, like in Amsterdam, and just all the problems that they're facing. Or something like that, but no specific person.
More tourism related rather than...
That's doable. Yeah. That's doable. Clearly doable.
That's very doable. Yeah. Mr. Florian.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names, but I think one which I find fascinating, and maybe it's a bit too cliche, but it would be Richard Branson. Because I really admire what he's done in conservancy work in Kenya and all of that, also in terms of tourism. Then what he's done in Uber Luxury, of course, with his island, what he's doing with Galactic Hotels, and so I think it's just a fascinating person, comes from a complete different industry with his own airline, so Virgin Airlines. So he has so many different perspectives, and it's just a cool kind of guy. So,
definitely.
I saw him once from far, but so maybe
Flo, why you? Why you, bro? How you doing?
So maybe I should also send him a message and be like, "Hey, I saw you."
Don't know if you remember me.
He says that he remembers me as well. Just like it's his that would be cliche answer, and then I'll be like, "Yeah, okay, so come on my
CEO
podcast."
training number 4. Always write this on a note.
No, so I mean that, but of course that's kind of like, from a person and facets, and I think that could be an amazing podcast, and I think, why not?
He's a crazy dude. We are crazy people.
Yeah,
so.
I think if we all fit right in. Ladies and gents, that was fun. You probably heard in the background noise just now that the police is outside, so I think that's our cue to stop the recording.
That's our cue to run.
To run away. I am very much looking forward. Thanks, guys. Lots of fun things planned in season 5. Stay tuned. We have something called Smack Media Day tomorrow, so there'll be some fun pictures there and some fun videos.
Oh shit, is that tomorrow?
It is tomorrow, yeah. It's in your calendar as well.
8:30 a.m.
I spoke to both of your assistants, so I think it's in your calendar.
8:30, you cannot come me in at 8:30.
Thanks, guys. Nice to see you as always. Cheers.
Peace out.
Bye bye.
Bye.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this episode and everything else that is going on at Smack with us by checking out our website at smack.media or connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. We'll see you next time.